I have an intuitive response to working with wood. Initially I have to find the timber, so it's like hunting, you know, it's like going out to the woods and hunting. That immediately gives me a connection to the material that I'm working with. My name's Wycliffe Stutchbury, and my material of choice is timber. My work always centres around place, origin, provenance. Landscape is always at the back of my mind. An imagined landscape, usually, sometimes more specific, but always a bird's eye view. Each work is named after the place where I found the timber, and that also plays an important part, this sense of provenance and what the timber has experienced. And it also is helpful in reducing my palette, to know that I'm restricted to the material from one place. And although there's an editing process, that's just what it is. It's an editing process, and I do see myself really as an editor. I worked as a furniture maker for 20 years. What's been lovely about returning to wood is that I've kind of drawn back on all those techniques, and although I kind of have them, this is almost an exercise in learning when to stop. And I sort of want to try and just allow timber to speak for itself. What I love about timber is its kind of lack of consistency in a way. It's full of surprises and the character, and that's why I enjoy having my timber in front of me and deciding what I'm going to do from it. So I'm led by the material because the characteristics are so varied. You know, some timbers hold an edge just beautifully, like holly, which is very close grained, just holds an edge beautifully. And then you have bog oak, which is, you know, 5,000 years old, and you cut into it and it smells of burnt rubber, and it has these huge deep fissures in it, and you really feel like you're revealing a hidden world. It's just wonderful to be able to respond to the character of the material. Although I love its unpredictability, it is also unreliable. It splits, it cracks, it warps. But I've tried to celebrate that in some of the pieces, like the spheres. I've imposed this geometric form on a lump of wood and then allowed it to do its thing, and tried to embrace the characteristics of it rather than try and suppress them. I mean, the wonderful thing is that it's not just about the material. I mean, it's almost two stories, because you have your finished timber, but you have these amazing trees and how they occupy the landscape, and how they've lived and how they've absorbed their environment. So you have hawthorns on the South Downs that have been tortured by the prevailing wind, and they're sort of, you know, they've swept away from the wind, and that's how they've responded, but they've dug their heels in. They're almost like they record history in the way that they respond to their environment. This is called Gales Farm 5, and it's discarded field fencing. The timber was found at Gales Farm, which is near Friston, at the end of the South Downs, on the eastern side of the South Downs. It's a very bleak part of the South Downs, very close to the sea, where it's been buffeted by the wind and the rain for 40, 50 years. There are all these greys and these browns and these very dark, almost charcoal colours, and that's all been decided by where it was, whether it was underground or whether it was part of a latch for a gate, or whether it was facing the southwest and getting bleached and rained on. So it kind of sustains the scars, if you like, of its environment, but it produces these amazing colours and textures and the characteristics of it, and the open grain that can emerge. And so it was a lovely palette to work with. And I just sort of skinned all this field fencing. So I just cut the outside millimetre of all these posts and these rails. And underneath it is virgin oak. You know, so after 40, 50 years, just the surface has been vulnerable to its environment, and then cut it up into tiles and reassembled it. The West Dean piece, which is a 3D piece, it's a large bit of wood that I found when I was working at West Dean in West Sussex. And there I have responded in a kind of visceral, raw way to what I saw in the timber, and I've carved into it and I've hacked into it to bring out the qualities that I wanted to bring forward and wanted to bring into the spotlight. But I've tried to hold back as much as I can. That's the best moment, is when I let go and just let it take its own course. When I just relinquish myself of responsibility. Generally every piece, I have a kind of image in my mind of what it's going to look, what I would like it to look like, and it usually ends up looking nothing like that at all. Nothing like it.